career in environmental studies may sound too technical or mundane at first, but it's definitely one career choice which is very challenging and exciting at the same time. Imagine how cool it would be to get to work in the Sundarbans or at the Himalayas. And now that we know how to start off a career in environmental studies, let us look at some of the projects that environmentalists get to work upon.
Established as a charitable trust, WWF India addresses environmental issues like the survival of species and habitats, climate change and environmental education.
We started off very much as a wildlife-centered organization, and still a lot of work on wildlife and science and ecology. But increasingly we are working on a very wide range of issues, because environment today spans everything from say energy and climate to species conservation to working on water and water management, rivers, river basins, agriculture. So we do quite a lot of work on sustainable agriculture. How do you make agriculture more sustainable? And interestingly, we also do a lot of work on business. So people from the business sector also come and work with us, because we also need to transform businesses to behave and become more sustainable.
While climate change and energy conservation are among the chief areas of concern for WWF, biodiversity conservation, carbon footprint reduction and maintaining river systems are some of the other projects in the loop. And the Rivers for Life and Life for Rivers is one such program which has a vision of reviving the Ganga to ensure a healthy river ecosystem which is not just rich in biodiversity but also provides for a long-term water security to communities, businesses and nature.
We are already facing a water crisis in India today. Almost all our rivers are polluted. Our groundwater is reaching breaking point in terms of extraction. So without addressing issues of water, it's going to be very hard to address environmental challenges. So we have another quite a large and integrated program, that is what we call a Rivers for Life program, which started off by looking at the Ganga and the Ganga program, and is now primarily focusing on the Ram Ganga, which is a tributary of the Ganga. And the idea here was to actually work on a river which is not as huge and complicated as the Ganga, but which has the same set of problems, and to try and provide a set of solutions.
Increasing demands for water has left the Ganga all but dry. Without sufficient attention to demand management, recharge or recycling, the overall water availability is declining. Almost 60% of Ganga water is diverted for irrigation by the time it reaches the plains. And a large amount of pesticides, fertilizers and industrial effluents are released into the river every day.
So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the water flowing again. Then we can think about how do we manage pollution, how do we manage groundwater extraction, how do we manage some of the other issues. So one of the things we have been working on is really to develop methodologies to understand how much water should flow in a river and how this water can be allocated to different users. So for this, we've not only developed the methodology for what is called environmental flows in a river, but we have created these platforms. So for the Ram Ganga, we have created a platform called the Ram Ganga Mitra, or the Friends of the Ram Ganga, which is a multi-stakeholder platform and which involves basically all the different water users. So whether it's industry, whether it's the city, or whether it's farmers, whether it's residents, bringing all of these people together on a common platform to share the approaches and to actually sit down and talk about what do we want our river to be.
Inspiring young minds towards Ganga rejuvenation, WWF India has brought together over 3,000 people from different walks of life, referred to as Ram Ganga Mitras, or the Friends of the River. A Mitra is essentially anyone who cares for the river and society, wants to contribute constructively to the restoration and conservation of the river.
We chose the city of Moradabad to work in. Now this is a very difficult area to work in, and when we had to select and say, okay, where should we focus, it had to be a city on the Ram Ganga that we thought we would pilot this. There was a huge debate internally that it's going to be too difficult to work in Moradabad, it's this, it's that, and there were all these perceptions. And interestingly, when we went to the city and we approached the city government, the residents of the city, the industry, Moradabad is home to the largest brassware industry, highly polluting industry, but there are solutions for this as well. Nobody's really talked about this. So when we actually said and talked to the citizens of Moradabad and the users of the river to say we want to find solutions, the response was overwhelming.
Taking forward the agenda of environmental protection and working with varied groups of individuals and institutions across different sections of society, WWF India is contributing to stopping the degradation of the planet's natural environment and helping in building a brighter future for all mankind. With Richa Sajotia and camera person Pooja Arya, Abhishek Singh for NDTV.
While we have organizations like the World Wildlife Fund on one hand, we also have NGOs like Swechha, which are not just creating environmental awareness and providing solutions, but also engaged in educating the masses. We have with us Diksha, who is the program manager at Swechha, and she will tell us more about the concept.
Yes, so Swechha is an organization that started about 15 years ago, and it started as a campaign. So Vimlendu, our founder, he was studying at Stephens when he started this campaign for the river Yamuna, and this campaign gathered a lot of student support, and which is what gradually evolved into Swechha, and we've been around for 15 years now, and we've been working on the issues of education, environment, and we run a few enterprises as well. All these years we've been working on 3 themes: education, environment and enterprises. So we work with children a lot. We work with children who go to government schools, who go to private schools. So we run a non-formal learning program for the children of a slum community called Jagdamba Camp. The program is called Pagdandi. We work with private schools and we run environmental and life skills modules in the schools. We do travel-based programs with them. So we organize something called as Yamuna Yatra every year, which is tracing the journey of the river all the way up to the glacier, and then we travel back with the river. So the idea is really to get people and get these young people to the river to see what actually is happening. And then as a part of our environmental campaigns, we run something called as monsoon wooding, which is happening right now. And this is our annual plantation campaign. So every year we go across communities, organizations, institutions, and we plant trees, and as a principle we only plant the native species, so the kind of trees that Delhi needs right now. And over the last 2 years we have created 2 urban mini forests in Delhi and Faridabad. And this year we intend to go across Delhi and create butterfly gardens, herbal gardens, and create food forests.
So the entire concept is not just having environmental solutions, but also bringing together the community to do something for the cause.
Absolutely. So we follow the procedure of education, empowerment, and then and as a part of which, as a result of which, we've started a couple of enterprises as well. So we started something called as Green the Gap, which is now Swechha Store, back in 2009, which is where we upcycle the waste. And if you see this entire office, we have done we are India's first upcycled office, so we've done our entire office out of waste. And very recently what we also started is something called as Green Creeps, which is our enterprise in urban farming, where we are encouraging people to grow their own food. And one of our most recent success stories would have to be this enterprise called Lunchbox 17 that we started with the women of the community we work with. So it's a tiffin service, and LB 17 over the past 1 year has now evolved into something called as Million Kitchen, which is an app which is on which anyone who's cooking can actually upload the food and we'll sell it for you.
It's a very interesting concept, but Diksha, I want to know that how do you profile people? How do you bring together people? Like, how do you know that these are the people you need to help, develop the community?
We just believe that it is important for all of us, for the society or the community to develop together, which is why we organize mega events. Which is why we organize something called as a Yamuna Shramdan, which is where all the people, so about 3,000 people on December 2014, so they came on the banks of the river and they manually cleaned up the river.
And do you think there has been a considerable change? Can we see?
Absolutely. So, but again, when we talk about development or when we talk about change, it is something that does not happen overnight. It does not even happen, say, in a couple of years. So it is something that gradually happens over generations.
Diksha, you told me about how you are bringing together young people and trying to create awareness among the community. I am actually curious to know that how, because it's tough to convince people to do something like this. So what were the kind of challenges that you have faced till now?
Like I said, we started as a volunteer group, and which is why we still continue to be a volunteer driven organization, and we have a very strong presence in colleges and universities across Delhi, which is what has definitely worked in our favor. But definitely there have been a lot of challenges, and especially when we're working with young people, so in order to retain and sustain their interest is one of the biggest challenges.
So for that you also have tie-ups with colleges and
Yes, so
You're doing all of
we do
that.
film screenings, workshops, capacity building workshops. We create a strong presence on social media. That's how we reach out to them.
Another thing that I've really heard from a lot of people about Swechha is upcycling.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us more about what do you mean by upcycling? And I see so many interesting things over here on the table. So
Right.
tell us a bit about this.
Everyone's heard about recycling, but upcycling is something when you are creating your waste into something that is of more value. So a couple of years ago, Vimlendu was shooting a film called Disposable, which was a film about the landfill and where our waste goes, which is when he thought that could there be more to waste than just the landfill, and he started with Green the Gap, which is now Swechha Store. So we started upcycling the waste that we just dispose of without even thinking twice. If you see this is actually a wallet, and it has been made using an old beer can. This is again something, so it's tire tube.
And who are the people who are making these projects?
So most of the designs are done in-house, but then we have a workshop right here, and so we have people who are making it. So we have tailors, and the idea of Green the Gap or Swechha Store now is also to create that chain of livelihood.
Thank you so much, Diksha, for
Thank
being
you.
with us on the show.
Thank you so much.